Hey friends, this is Waylon Lewis, and I thought we could talk about compassion today, about equity, about solving, say, like 10-30% of the climate crisis, about yummy food, about all of those things in one. And it goes under a name that is a little less attractive than everything I just said, which is veganism. So when we hear that word, I feel like a lot of us get triggered these days instead of getting curious. So from a sort of heartfelt, empathetic, curious point of view, I thought we could explore that today. And we have one of the founders kind of the modern compassion for animals movement, big deal gentleman who doesn't consider himself a big deal, Gene Baur. He's been on the show before, founder of Farm Sanctuary, one of the first sanctuaries for animals. So if you love animals, if you don't love climate crisis, being cruel, if you love your dog, your cat, hopefully this can be a conversation for you. I want to keep it pretty simple and just kind of focus on Gene's story. And then, Gene.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Do I have to turn this other direction?
There you go.
All right, man.
Gene has the rare power of standing sideways at any moment.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. There we have it. Okay, good. This is not something I do often, so it's good to see you. I'm glad this thing is working.
Yeah, I love it. It makes me think of like Inception or something when they're like running on the walls.
Yeah, right.
So, Gene, thank you so much for coming again.
Yes, absolutely. It's great to be here. I really appreciate the way you address complex issues in nuanced, thoughtful ways, and the vegan world is it's very simple in some ways, but also very complex and deep in other ways.
Yeah, so I was biking home just now and I was thinking, we kind of, Molly, who runs our talk show, our podcast and video series, and I were talking about all these different angles we could do. And I just look to you as someone who, you're kind of a founder of the movement and, just very simply a very caring person. And I think, first of all, it might be nice for people to hear a little bit about your story and Farm Sanctuary, but I kind of want to get to a place where I can just ask you some questions like, why is it so hard for us to just care about animals? Why is it so hard for us to just care about animals? How do we kind of share the message of veganism without, getting into endless kind of conflict? But how do we just kind of share that simple, caring love that everyone seems to find easily for their dog or their cat or their goldfish or whatever it is, but we find so threatening when we extend it to our plates? So before we get there, first, for those who don't know, who are you and what the heck have you been doing with your life?
My name is Gene Baur. I'm the president and co-founder of Farm Sanctuary. I've been a vegan since 1985, co-founded Farm Sanctuary in 1986, and we started by investigating factory farms to document conditions. Our thinking early on, and pretty simplistic, but it still has some resonance and relevance, but we thought if we went in and videotaped and showed people what was happening, everybody would be appalled and would stop eating animals. So I think
Gene, I still believe that. I share stories all the time, and I'm always like unpleasantly surprised when 100% of my friends don't immediately say, wait, what? What are we doing? No way am I doing that.
Yes. So there's like this awareness about the problems, and then there needs to be the opportunities to live differently. And we live in a sort of machine where factory farming gets literally billions of dollars from the government, where there's advertising all around us saying, this is how we're supposed to eat. Most people around us are eating animal products without thinking about it. I grew up eating meat without thinking about it. I grew up in Hollywood, California, and as a kid, I actually did commercials for McDonald's and for the dairy industry without even thinking about it. Now,
do you have those videoed?
No, so I was an extra, so I was in the background. I wasn't like,
That would be so good to use in some advertising or something.
But it really speaks to how, look, I was part of believing that eating animals was fine. I was participating in it. I was brought into the machinery of it. I did commercials for McDonald's, and I remember they even had this whole building outside of Los Angeles. There was a full McDonald's restaurant specifically used to film McDonald's commercials. And I remember being in this commercial set, right? Yeah. And it was like a McDonald's. And some guy walked in off the street and he got in line and he didn't realize we were shooting a commercial.
So didn't have any food?
He got in line and he, ended up being asked to leave because, it's a whole commercial. Right. But so no, he didn't have any food.
Yeah.
But
so
anyway, yeah.
Yeah. So because I'm the same way. I grew up, I'm 190 pounds and 6'3". Grew up playing baseball, basketball, loving bacon. I was allergic to milk, but, definitely wanted to drink it. Thought it was healthy, calcium, all that, milk is a kick, all those commercials. Like, how did you sort of, like back in 1985, I'm assuming it started in 83 or 84, it was gradual. How did you sort of wake up from that? And I mean, that's pretty special because, if your vegan card goes back to 1985, like, what were you doing differently? What were the circumstances that allowed for that?
Well, for me, it was really an incremental process. And it started when I was really young, growing up in the Hollywood Hills, seeing the harms that human beings were causing to wild animals that lived in the neighborhood. I remember a deer, for example, getting caught in a chain link fence in a neighbor's yard and being killed, and how that was viscerally upsetting. I remember seeing a beautiful oak tree in the neighborhood cut down so a house could be made bigger. That was viscerally upsetting. And, I was born in 1962, so the Vietnam War was happening, the Cold War was raging, and I was thinking, what are we doing as a species? We're causing harm to animals, to the earth, to ourselves. Doesn't make sense. And so I basically didn't want to be a cog in a wheel causing so much harm. So that was the initial instinct.
Was that sort of your parents, or was it some book, or like what made you feel like actually notice the oak tree or notice the deer and care?
It was my gut, it wasn't anybody telling me anything. Wow. It was just me seeing this and being hurt by it, seeing a beautiful, beautiful tree cut down, right. Seeing this deer struggling. It just hurt, it just hurt. And but then, as we grow up, we become acculturated to, well, this is how it's supposed to be, right. And I remember, like, with war, we're killing people, but, in church they say thou shalt not kill. So how does that fit? And it didn't quite get it, and it didn't fit. So I, over time, just started questioning certain assumptions, questioning some of the things I was being told. And the first time I heard about factory farming was when I was in either grammar school or high school, and my grandmother told me about how veal calves are raised, chained by the neck in crates for their whole lives. And this was in the 1970s. And I said, I'm never eating veal. That was my first kind of inclination about factory farming. And then another—
How old were you then?
I'm gonna guess early teens, early teens. And then later on, this is maybe I'm about 16 or 17, I had come home and I remember my mother had made a chicken dinner, and I saw this dead chicken on the plate on his or her back, just laying there. And I saw this dead bird. And that evening I didn't eat chicken. And for much of the rest of high school, I didn't eat much meat. But that memory faded and I kind of got back into the habit. I mean, everybody around me was eating meat. And then in the early to mid 1980s, I did some traveling around the country. I got involved with various activist organizations. I learned more about factory farming, heard about Frances Moore Lepay's book, Diet for a Small Planet.
Yeah, we've had her on this show. Yeah, she's great.
She is. Yeah. And just how inefficient animal agriculture is.
Yeah.
And
which is interesting right there. I don't want to, there's so many rabbit holes, but you casually say how inefficient animal agriculture is. We're bred and we're brought up to think like, this is how it works. It's the most efficient thing you can eat. It's fine. But it's not cooking the whole world, destroying. Yeah.
Yes. It's so there's these narratives out there, these beliefs out there, these myths out there that we grow up with. And, one of them is you need meat for protein. You need cow's milk for calcium. And when I learned that those were myths and that I could live well without eating other animals, that was the final straw. You know, I'd been uncomfortable with factory farming, didn't like the whole system, but didn't really understand that it was possible to live as a vegan. So I went vegan in 1985. I thought, if I can live well without causing unnecessary harm, why wouldn't I? So that's
I missed something there. So the big step of becoming vegan in 85, I mean, other than Francis Moore Lepay's book, like what kind of guidance was there out there for like how to eat healthfully, or was there any kind of social support for that? I'm assuming no.
Not much. I mean, there were like folks at PETA, the animal rights people, you know, that were vegans, and there's a vegan society, and there's, you know, the old hippie vegetarian cookbooks, and you know, the co-ops. Yes.
I have Moosehead over here. Yeah.
So there were these individuals and organizations and folks that were thinking this way and challenging our food system, but it wasn't nearly the movement it is today. And you know, vegans are still very much a minority point of view. Back in the 1980s, that was even more so the case. And but
I remember in 1998, I'm pretty sure it was, being in Boston, and I remember the exact street I was on and who I was talking to, and I remember someone telling me what vegan was. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah. What it is it's an aspiration to live as kindly as possible. It's an aspiration to live as kindly as possible. And it's not an ingredient list, although certainly we don't want to support certain cruel industries by buying products from those industries. But it's really an aspiration. And it also recognizes that as human beings, we're all imperfect. Even the most vegan is not perfect. And that's okay. But we can always try to do better. And so that's why for me, being vegan is really an aspiration.
I love how the story starts with that oak tree and, you know, the deer in the fence, because I think, you know, connecting with my second question, which is, you know, more about if it feels so simple and so good when you are vegan and when you're just in that place of caring or compassion or love, feels so natural. There's something inherent about it. Like when you were a kid, no one had to tell you, not even your mom or dad, to care about that oak tree or that deer in the fence. Like there's something, I remember when I was like 6 or 7, I went vegetarian. I didn't know what that was, but I went vegetarian. I got really mad when I realized like the sausage, I think it was, that I loved came from an animal that I was reading about during the day in my children's books. I was like, that's crazy. I thought it was crazy. And I went vegetarian. I don't think I went vegan. I don't know if I understood everything, obviously, but it only lasted like, you know, a week or two, because again, there was no support and I was like just being a weird kid. But there's something inherent when you're a kid or you're just an open-hearted adult and you say, wow, this is crazy. Like I have a puppy underneath the table right now. And when people are arguing with me about veganism, which is all the time, I always say, if I invited you over for a barbecue and while you were here, I just took a knife and shoved it up Winfield's brain and took his fur off and started cooking him, like I wouldn't even get far in that process before you were not only horrified, but calling the police. And yet every other animal, and my career would be over, my reputation would be over. I'd be locked up, I think, I hope. But with every other animal, pretty much, like veal, these beautiful little sweet calves that are a result of our dairy consumption, as you know, like that's not even a problem, right?
Yeah. No, it's amazing how such cruelty can be normalized and accepted and participated in by so many people.
Yeah.
And these are not bad people. It's just we kind of grow up with certain beliefs. We have certain systems around us, you know, like our socioeconomic system where there's all these fast food hamburgers, there's all this factory farmed food that's widely accessible. We also have belief systems. You know, we believe we need this stuff, and we believe that factory farming is efficient when in fact it is not. So there's all these narratives
Right.
and these beliefs we have that we just need to think about more carefully, with more grounding in empirical reality, and then ultimately to make choices that are better aligned with our own values. So we don't say, don't tell me I don't want to know, factory farming is so upsetting, which so often people say, which means most people still have this compassion, this empathy. They don't want to support unnecessary cruelty, but also eating plants instead of animals is better aligned with our interests. We're eating food that's making us sick. You know, it's been estimated we could save 70% on healthcare costs by shifting to a whole food plant-based diet. And animal agriculture is one of the top contributors to the most significant environmental problems, including the climate crisis. So it's not in our interest. It's not aligned with our humanity, but we're doing it. So there's systems and structures in place that normalize it. And part of those are social systems and the people around us. And then the narratives. And whenever there is a challenge to the dominant narrative, to the powerful industry of animal agriculture, there's a counter narrative off.
Just lost your volume. I'm not sure. Can you hear me? Okay, you're back.
Yeah, okay. So we're challenging a dominant system, a dominant economic system, a dominant belief system. And so when there starts to be challenges to that dominant system, such as the dairy industry, and one of the challenges is almond milk or soy milk or other plant milks, one of the big narratives now is that almond milk uses a lot of water.
Right.
Fact is, cow's milk uses more water, but that really speaks to the ecosystem, the machinery we exist within, where the media is part of promoting certain ideas, and they comport with the mainstream beliefs. And challenging mainstream beliefs is not easy, and that's what vegans basically try to do.
So yeah, there's so much there. I mean, right now in Boulder, Colorado, the air is hazy. You can barely see the beautiful mountains because of wildfires. We had 1,000 homes burned down in the middle of winter 2 years ago here in Boulder. Costco and a hotel burned down. You know, Lahaina and Hawaii just burned down. Everyone is concerned and compassionate about that, but very few people are connecting that with climate crisis, let alone, you know, animal agriculture. And I think a lot of people vaguely acknowledge, yeah, probably climate crisis is playing a role in the fires, but like the overwhelming focus in response to the fire in Hawaii, let alone Greece and Canada and everywhere, is let's help the people, let's, you know, address the sort of symptom, which is obviously important, but none of us seem to be, as a society, you know, saying, wow, we need to radically change our relationship to this planet for our own sakes, for the sake of animals, for the sake of the planet, for the sake of all future generations, our children and all that. So I guess I'm, you know, wondering, you know, the very, very simple question I kind of want to ask you, because I feel like you're just a big sweetheart and in authority on this on some level, is how do we have these conversations? Because I was like, I'm 49. I feel like by the time I'm dead, if things go really, really well, maybe I was thinking on my bike right here, like, you know, the climate crisis is going to go crazy. Food systems are going to kind of fall apart. Factory farming, maybe, you know, maybe 33% of the market might be vegan, but that's still an epic amount. That's billions of animals being tortured and killed every year. So how would we get to, you know, 90%, 80%, 70% in the next few decades? Obviously, it's grown so quickly, so it's not hopeless. I had Miyoko on here recently, but, you know, what's your advice for all of us who do care to talk to others about it?
I think empathy is critical in understanding that people who are behaving or participating in habits that are so harmful are, you know, maybe afraid of change, and just provide the tools. And also recognize that, you know, it's been said that human beings are rational animals, but it's probably more accurate to say that we're rationalizing animals. And we start rationalizing things we don't really feel good about. So, you know, I don't want to think about factory farming, but I need meat. So you know, that's a rationalization. So just in providing solutions. So part of change, I think, occurs when people learn about something and learn about a problem. But sometimes if somebody learns about a problem and they don't know what they can do about it, that's a very tough place to be. So
Yeah, they get depressed.
Depressed, feel hopeless, feel despair. But if people know there's something they can do, that makes it a lot easier to talk about the problems. So bringing vegan food to community gatherings, bringing vegan food to family gatherings, just showing what it tastes like, and maybe not announcing, hey, this is vegan, because sometimes people will emotionally react to that, but just showing people that vegan food is tasty, it's satisfying, it's not that hard to get. Then when people try that, they're much more open to the other more challenging issues. You know, I've had people say to me, oh, I could never go vegan. But after they try something tasty and vegan, they say, oh, I could do it. And so you really want to get people into this space of, oh, yes, I can, as opposed to, oh, I never could. And so part of empathy, I think, is recognizing that people have fears and people have perceived obstacles. And it's a matter of just helping to break down those obstacles and create opportunities. And so everybody's different. For different people, different issues will resonate. You know, some people, especially as people start getting older, health becomes a significant issue. But the climate crisis, you know, our earth is burning. That's really important for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Cruelty to
parents, for young people, parents.
Yeah.
Climate has got to be, you know, one of the top issues now.
Absolutely, absolutely. For all of us, it's relevant.
Hopefully, but I mean, top of mind or heart.
Yes.
Some of us is very. If you have a kid right now, who's, you know, 10 years old or something, you got to be concerned about climate, whatever your political background.
Yes. I mean, all of us. It affects all of us. And like you say, young parents with kids, it really is a relevant, critically important issue. And so I think understanding what is important to people and speaking to people about issues that they care about, and then also providing what you can do about it. Because knowing that things are really bad is part of it, but unless there's a way out, it's very difficult to have those conversations.
Yeah, I really love what you said about, like, just, you know, bringing vegan food over and not making a big deal about it being vegan if you even don't even say it. Like here in Boulder, we have like the most unbelievable gelato. And they have vegan and non-vegan, but some of the most popular flavors with everyone are the vegan flavors, and they're unbelievable. They're fantastic. And I feel like that, or like donuts, you know, I have a vegan donut here. I missed lunch. And, you know, that kind of thing, like everyone loves a donut, right? You know, so the restaurants, in a way, the food is a big way to convert people, because I think a lot of, like you said, the hesitation or the rationalization is people saying, I can't give up my butter. I can't give up my XY, my croissant. We have organic vegan croissants here in Boulder that are as good as anything I've ever had in my whole life. So, you know, that makes it a lot easier.
It sure does. It sure does. Yeah. And we need to create a subsidy system, though, that makes the animal products more, oh my, donut. But the subsidy system makes factory farms and animal products widely accessible. So we need to change that so that these plant-based foods are much more accessible and affordable for more people. So that's part of the system we're in that we need to work on from a policy perspective.
And Bill McKibben, Michael Pollan, I don't think either is probably vegan, but they've been talking about the Farm Bill and how kind of corrupt and out of touch it is.
It is.
The Farm Bill is, yeah, you know.
There was a survey done a few years ago looking at dairy industry income, and they found that 73% of dairy industry income came from government programs. I mean, that's ridiculous. And we have a glut of cow's milk. We have more milk than we can consume. So we're really pushing to export it. Now the USDA secretary is a former head of the Dairy Export Council. So again, there's all this machinery around it. But on the other side of things, the average US adult gets like 1/10 as many fruits and vegetables as they should. And we're not investing in fruits and vegetables. So this is an example of how the Farm Bill and the investments should be shifted away from dairy, from meat, from animal products into the kinds of foods we need more of, plant-based foods. So that's rational, but you know, agribusiness is very, very powerful, very entrenched in Washington, D.C. So I think change has to happen at the policy level, but also at the local level, at the individual level. All of it matters.
Other than like Senator Cory Booker, we've had him on the show here. Are there any leaders in Congress or in politics in the US or elsewhere in the world that you know of who are vegan or advocates?
Yeah. Jim McGovern from Massachusetts, not vegan, but he's introduced some good legislation on the food system. There's Adam Schiff is apparently vegan. I don't know that he's done much on the policy side regarding animal agriculture and promoting plant-based food. Jamie Raskin, I think, is vegetarian and very sympathetic to these issues, a representative from Maryland. But these issues also kind of cut across political lines. You know, I think about, for example, Matthew Scully, who used to be a speechwriter for President Bush, and he wrote a book called Dominion, The Power of Man, the Suffering of Animals, and the Call to Mercy. And he talked about how, you know, mercy to the least of these is a value that shouldn't be liberal or conservative. It should appeal to all of us. And so I think that these issues really can resonate with people from all walks of life.
Yeah, amen.
Thanks for listening. Hope you're getting a lot out of it. The full conversation is on our indie platform that supports and continues our work, elephantjournal.com/videos. You can subscribe, listen, watch, and participate there. And when you do so, you'll keep these mindful videos and podcasts going. elephantjournal.com/videos. May it be of benefit.